is MJF joining Chris Jericho's Inner Circle. Welcome everyone to your Enhancement Talent review for AEW Dynamite November 13th, 2019. We're going to get right into things here. We'll start off with the main talking point and then, as always, circle back to the beginning of the show and then go from there. This was at the top of the second hour, just going into the 9 o'clock hour. Chris Jericho comes out for a promo. And at this point in the show, I was like, how have we not heard from MJF yet? Or is it possible that they're just not going to have MJF on the show because they didn't advertise it there when they went through the matches and the segments that they always do at the beginning of the show? Nothing about MJF. So I was thinking, like, maybe they're just not going to do anything with MJF this week and just let it stir. But Chris Jericho comes out for a promo. He still wants his thank yous, but not from the people of Nashville. He wants it from all of the wrestlers in the locker room, the front office, the back office, the side office, he says. He runs through everyone he's beaten in AEW, and that is when Cody Rhodes' music hits. But Cody Rhodes it is not. It is MJF. So the old heel trick of coming out to the beloved babyface's music. Awesome. So MJF comes out, and he cuts this promo on Cody, says that if he didn't throw in the towel for Cody, Cody's career would be over, so he really should be thanking him. Continues going on about how the people don't see the real Cody and that the only one that knows the real Cody is MJF himself. How Cody doesn't care about the people, he only cares about himself. He never cared about MJF, he just wanted to hold him down as much as he could, hold him under his thumb, all that. So, good promo by MJF, but not to be forgotten about is just while MJF is in the ring cutting this promo, Chris Jericho is standing to the side just listening to everything, and then MJF and Jericho start talking to each other. And this interaction overall was hilarious. More MJF and Chris Jericho promos would make for a great Dynamite show, as they do this back and forth thing, and it all starts with Jericho saying that I heard that from someone that you wanted to join the Inner Circle, and then MJF would say, well, I heard from someone that you want me to join the Inner Circle. And so they just go back and forth. Do you want me to join the Inner Circle? Do you want to be in the Inner Circle? Jericho says that he and MJF have a lot in common. The money line of this was that Jericho says it's almost as if MJF's parents got horny after watching Jericho beat Juventud Guerrero 25 years ago on WCW, and then 9 months later, MJF was born. And so, of course, that led to the line of MJF saying, who the hell is Juventud Guerrero? And Jericho just said, Google it, bro. Love it. Hoovy is getting a shout-out on a major TV show in 2019. Great stuff. And they go back and forth again, doing the whole, do you want me to join the Inner Circle? Do you want to be in the Inner Circle? Blah, blah, da, da, da. They start getting angry with each other. And Jericho says, you know who the biggest jackass in AEW is? MJF says, yeah, and I'm going to say it first. No, I'm going to say it first. Then they both pause, and then at the same time, they say, Cody Rhodes. Then laugh and hug. Now, if this sounds familiar, it is because this is essentially what Chris Jericho did with Kevin Owens. Probably almost 2 years ago to the day. Probably a little less than 2 years ago, because it was after Survivor Series, if I'm not mistaken, 2017, and Jericho and Owens were assumingly blaming each other for a loss, but then they both swerved the audience at the end by saying that, well, I'm going to say whose fault it really was. Oh, well, I'm going to say it. And then at the same time, they both say Roman Reigns. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a Jericho idea for this promo. Nice little callback to that. But, that begs the question, is Jericho and MJF's relationship going to be like Jericho and Kevin Owens' relationship? Because I could see those two having great chemistry together. They showed it here. But not entirely sure. So this is when Cody comes out. Doctor's trying to persuade him away from the ring. But he makes a beeline out there, takes out MJF and Jericho. He tried to do a power slam on Jericho, but it failed miserably, and both of them just fell over. I don't know if Jericho just couldn't get enough height on it, or what it was, but they both just fell down, and then they did it again a few seconds later. But as Cody is taking out everyone, we finally get the debut of Wardlow, who surprisingly was dressed very nice in a suit. I didn't really expect that. But, we had the video packages for Wardlow earlier in the year, and a lot of people thought he would debut at the Full Gear show on Saturday. But instead, they do it the Wednesday afterward. Wardlow makes his debut, taking out Cody, ends up choking him with a tie at the discretion of MJF. Unlike Daniel Bryan, I do not imagine Wardlow will be fired for choking someone with a tie, but that remains to be seen, I guess. So, the question that I have coming out of this is MJF going to be a part of the Inner Circle? Is Wardlow going to be a part of the Inner Circle? And my overwhelming thought is that I don't think it's going to happen, because I think we run the risk of turning the Inner Circle into the NWO, where everyone and their dog ends up becoming a member. And I don't think MJF should be in the Inner Circle, because I think MJF should really be standing outside of that. I feel like that would really take away from what MJF is doing. Because you look at the guys in the Inner Circle, you have Jericho, and you have Sammy Guevara, who's, the young upstart who can use Jericho to help himself get over. And then you have Santana and Ortiz, you have Jake Hager, who's the muscle of the group. So that takes out Wardlow, because his spot that he would have is already filled in the Inner Circle with Jake Hager. And MJF, I think, is good enough to stand out on his own, that he doesn't really need to be a part of the Inner Circle. And they could work together at some points, but I don't really think MJF needs to be a part of it. I think the better thing to do is just have MJF and Wardlow as a tandem, with Wardlow being the Diesel to MJF's Shawn Michaels. And, they could easily do that the other way, too. MJF could be more of the manager for Wardlow if they wanted to do it that way. It all just depends on the direction. Because, we look at MJF and what he's done since AEW started. He hasn't really had any great matches. He hasn't really had the opportunity to have those either, because, you look at the matches he's been in on the pay-per-views. There was the Battle Royal, which I thought he was the star of that Battle Royal. And other than that, he was probably a part of some other multi-man matches that I don't remember. He was never really in a featured position on one of those pay-per-views. And then, I believe on the first episode of Dynamite, he had the match against Brandon Cutler, which it somehow went off the rails. There was a big botch by Cutler at some point, and it just really screwed the whole match up. But, MJF, I think, needs to have time while Cody isn't cleared to wrestle, allegedly, to just be able to build his character and build his in-ring reputation up as we then get to a match with Cody. It's really why I thought it would have been better to delay this turn of MJF on Cody and be able to build MJF up more to the big audience of AEW, because really the relationship between MJF and Cody, like, if you watch the stuff that the Elite and all that do on YouTube, and you've followed them on the indies and all that, on ROH and whatever, and MJF and MLW, then I'm sure that this wasn't too soon for you. But when we look at the mass audience that AEW has, a lot of them are completely new to all of this. And for those people, it would be too soon because we haven't really established the relationship enough between MJF and Cody. So that's kind of where I stand on that. But now, I mean, we can't go back and redo this, so this is where we're at. So I think we need to establish time for MJF to really get over on his own, and maybe with the help of Wardlow being a part of his tandem. But as part of the Inner Circle, I feel like the rest of that group is just going to overshadow him, because Chris Jericho is really the best thing going in AEW. So I think in a sense it could be too overshadowing for MJF to get out of the shadow of Jericho, when right now he needs to establish himself. So I don't think MJF joining the Inner Circle overall would be a good move. I like him and Wardlow as a tandem, and being able to build up MJF with some other secondary feud before they get into what they're going to do with him and Cody. I don't know who you could put him against that could really show the best of MJF. I'm trying to think offhand. I'm not entirely sure. But, you know, someone that can just have a good match with him on TV, get MJF a good quality win. I mean, immediately I think of maybe Kenny Omega, but I'm not sure if they'll go in that direction, and I don't know when Kenny Omega is going to be wrestling again. So maybe, and Kenny's already, taken a lot of losses here, so maybe they want to try to do something else with him. But other than that, that's how I feel on that. I think Wardlow and MJF should be a fun tandem if that's the direction they go in. Jericho already has enough juice in the Inner Circle that MJF isn't needed there, and MJF doesn't really need the Inner Circle either. So I think it's best for them to go their separate ways, personally. But we will see where it goes from here. And with that being said, we'll circle back to the top of the show and go segment by segment, starting with Jon Moxley defeating Michael Nakazawa. Yes, Michael Nakazawa was finally on Dynamite. We knew that he was serious because he threw away the baby oil this time. But Moxley still beats him in short order, hits the DDT on him, gets the pin. Afterwards, Moxley grabs a mic, and he just says, "So that one counted, right?" Obviously, because the unsanctioned match, he's still pissed off about that, and how AEW is trying to hold him down in his vision. Moxley basically said that he respects Kenny Omega because he doesn't think anyone else in the locker room of AEW could have that match with Moxley. And then, he basically puts the whole locker room on notice. Says that he's coming for everyone, that if you have a match with me, you better have an ambulance on speed dial. Which I don't think you need to have an ambulance on speed dial. You can just dial 911, but, that nonetheless, that was the whole promo, and that would set up to something that we'll get to later. Then we have the Dark Order versus Jurassic Express, and they did this video where they closed in on the Titantron for Jurassic Express. And I thought that this was going to be Luchasaurus coming back. But it was not, as it was Marko, Stunt, and Jungle Boy going up against Dark Order. And so this went pretty much how most of these matches have went with Marko Stunt. Marko got worked over for a lot of the match. He'd get some offense in, but would ultimately be taken down most of the time. There was a pretty bad botch by Marko on here, too, with a double team. It looked like he was going for a springboard into Hurricane Rana, but he just slipped off the ropes. But Jungle Boy covered for it well because he just then kicks the Dark Order guy and they just redid the spot. Ultimately, Dark Order ends up getting the pin on Marko with their double team finisher. And Dark Order tried to recruit Marko Stunt to be one of their creepers. Evil Uno even has a mask that he's offering to Jungle Boy. But that is when, or not Jungle Boy, Marko Stunt, but that is when Jungle Boy comes in and throws the mask down. So, of course, the creepers attack both of them. The crowd chants for Luchasaurus, who does, in fact, return, takes out all of the creepers. Evil Uno bounces out of the ring, and the other guy that I forget his name gets taken down by Luchasaurus, gets chokeslammed, and the trio of Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Marko Stunt have a group hug afterwards. Awesome. Awesome that Luchasaurus is back. One of my favorite things on the early parts of AEW. It was a shame that he went down so early in such a freak way. But awesome that he's back now. Awesome that we're going to get to see Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy have some more tag team matches, because I think they were a really good team. I think that Jurassic Express overall still hasn't won a match, if I'm not mistaken, as a team. So they've really got the underdog status going. But now that Luchasaurus is back, I think they're, at some point or another, they're going to be tag team champions. And that will be fun. As far as Dark Order goes, I still don't get it. I feel like we haven't been given any explanation for the gimmick, or why one of them wears a mask and one of them doesn't, and why they have the creepers, and there's just no backstory to it, so I don't really get why I can care about the gimmick. But nonetheless, after this, we get the most random of triple threat matches. The Librarian, Peter Avalon, versus Shawn Spears versus Darby Allin. And early on in this match, Joey Janela runs in. He and Shawn Spears get in a fight. They end up fighting through the crowd. So Shawn Spears is neutralized in this match. He is gone. So that leaves just Darby Allin and Peter Avalon. So, of course, Darby beats Peter Avalon from there with a coffin drop. And then, where it gets interesting, is Allin grabs a mic and simply says, "Jon Moxley, I accept." So, that would lead to the announcement after the commercial that next week it will be Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley, one-on-one. And I have to say I'm very interested in that, because I like that Allin in character just seemed to be pissed off that Moxley wasn't concerned with him. Said that no one else could do what Omega did with Moxley. And so Allin in character has to be like, well, what about me? I mean, I'm fucking coffin dropping onto aprons and with Cracker Barrels. I'm hardcore, bro. I have skateboards with thumbtacks. Don't forget about me over here. So I'm interested to see how that match goes. I continue to be very interested in Darby Allin. And it seems like the majority audience has been too. That is one guy that AEW and that stage has really helped rise up and just make into their own new thing that's unique to most anything I can think of in wrestling right now, is the Darby Allin character. So I'm fascinated with him. I'm going to enjoy the Moxley and Allin match next week. I can assure that. Nyla Rose had a squash match against someone, whoever it was, local person. And that was the only women's match on the show. So this is the first time Nyla Rose has been on the main TV show since losing to Riho for the women's title. So they give her a squash match here. Whatever. And then the only other women's segment of the night was Allie had an interview with Tony Schiavone. I guess they were talking about how Allie is the number 4 ranked woman right now, and she's racking up wins on AEW Dark, apparently. But the lights go out for the second time tonight, I believe. Maybe even the third. I don't freaking know. They do this lights out thing all the time, and it's really annoying, to be honest. But Awesome Kong and Brandy Rhodes come out. They do exactly what they did on Saturday. Kong beats up Allie, and they take some more hair for Awesome Kong to put on her waist belt. We'll see where that goes. Pac and Hangman Page, Adam Hangman Page, have a rematch of their match on Saturday. Didn't really feel like they needed to do another match. I don't really understand why, honestly. They felt like they needed to do another match after the really good one they did on Saturday. This one was a bit of a come down from that, but still had some good stuff in it. Like, it was a lot of stuff that we've seen them do before. Like, this time, Pac got drilled with a brainbuster on the outside, the same way that Hangman had the same fate to him at the hands of Pac on Saturday. And, they redid the spot with the referee that they've done 3 times now. And the finish of this match is Pac knocks Hangman out with 2 bicycle kicks right to the face. Page is unconscious, but Pac, while he is on the ground, continues to stomp on the head. The referee tries to push Pac away, but Pac is not following his instructions. I thought we were going to get a disqualification. I thought Pac was going to be disqualified for kicking too much ass, the old finish there. But instead, Pac just goes up for the Black Arrow, hits it on the lifeless Hangman, and then puts in the Brutalizer. And Hangman being unconscious, the ref calls for the bell. Pac wins by submission. So, I don't really get it, because they had Hangman get the big win on Saturday. This just feels too 50-50 to me. And, this means that Pac wins the series 2-1 if this is the last match that they have against each other. So, didn't really think this needed to happen, personally. After this, randomly, the Young Bucks and Santana and Ortiz are in a brawl with each other backstage, including Santana doing a dive off of a forklift to the Young Bucks and various referees and security guards. So I guess that answers the question. We finally know who used that forklift against Roman Reigns. It was Santana this whole time. There you go. One of the Young Bucks gets thrown into a door, and the door opens. It's a men's bathroom. I'm assuming it's a men's bathroom, but whatever it is. But we have Orange Cassidy, sunglasses and all, just standing there, hands in pockets, standing next to the toilet. So, when I got to thinking about this, it just made me laugh. Because, in kayfabe, does that mean that Orange Cassidy has just been standing there with his hands in his pockets, standing next to the toilet all day? Is this what Orange Cassidy does on a day-to-day basis? He just stands in various locations with his hands in his pockets? It just made me laugh. This brawl took place all through commercial, and when it comes back, it is on the stage. The Young Bucks being taken out by baseball-filled socks, put through the gimmick table, one of them was. Brandon Cutler tries to stop them. It doesn't work. Private Party ends up coming out, and security breaks things up. After this long, they couldn't break up the Young Bucks and Santana and Ortiz, but as soon as Private Party came out, they were able to break things up. So we had the main event. SCU of Kazarian and Scorpio Sky versus Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho. And this is for the tag team titles, as Chris Jericho wanted this match, wanted he and Sammy to have this match. And we're told that there's a 60-minute time limit, but there's only 15 minutes of TV time remaining. So, told on commentary that if it goes over, that the remainder of the match will be available on AEW's YouTube channel. And now I'm fascinated if they're actually ever going to do that with a big championship match, because I don't want to say that's a bad idea, because it would definitely drive people to AEW's YouTube channel. They could see more things like the various stuff they do in AEW Dark and all that. So, I'm not sure if that's a bad idea, but it does seem weird that if you would ever do that, you just leave the audience that tuned in hanging. But either way, it was a fine match. It felt very rushed because there really wasn't a lot of TV time left. And the surprising finish was that Scorpio Sky ends up pinning Chris Jericho with an inside cradle. The first time that Jericho has been pinned or even lost a match of any kind in his AEW tenure. And who does he lose to? Scorpio Sky. And I love it. This was a brilliant decision. Scorpio Sky, they put so much investment into him during the whole tag team tournament, really making him feel like a star. And where AEW has deferred from WWE is that they are treating their tag teams seriously. Because in WWE, they don't give a shit about their tag teams. You would never see a tag team champion pin the world champion. It just doesn't happen in WWE in almost any scenario. And maybe there's like one scenario that someone will point out to me, but you get my point. Is that anytime it comes down to tag team versus singles champion, they always make the singles champion look strong. Like, I can think of instances where there were 2-on-1 handicap matches where the tag team champions have lost to the world champions in WWE. I think they did that with Roman Reigns, actually, not long ago, a couple years ago. But here, AEW wanted to make SCU, and most importantly, Scorpio Sky, seem like a big deal. So Scorpio Sky pins the world champion. And now, I've talked about this before. I thought when Christopher Daniels came back, that we were going to build to some sort of heel turn for Daniels. And now, I think it's even more interesting now that Scorpio Sky has pinned Chris Jericho. Because, naturally, if you pin the world champion, what are you going to say? Well, you're going to say, well, I should get a world championship match. And so, Scorpio Sky could push for a world championship match. And, maybe Kazarian and Daniels are like, we'd rather you just focus on the team here. Like, what about us? And that could lead to the dissension there. And maybe Kazarian and Daniels both turn on Scorpio Sky. They kick him out of SCU. They turn SCU into a heel tag team and get rid of Scorpio Sky. And Scorpio Sky can begin his ascension as a single star, which I think he has a very bright future of in AEW. I think at some point he's going to break away from SCU. He's going to be a single star, and he's going to be a world champion for AEW at some point, I think. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. So, I love the little nuggets of possible story that I'm getting between SCU and Scorpio Sky. So I'm interested to see what they do with that going forward. I'm very happy with Scorpio Sky getting a pinfall victory over Chris Jericho. I think that's a brilliant move. And overall, this was an awesome episode of Dynamite. And, one of the few criticisms I've had of Dynamite before is that it doesn't feel balanced enough between promo segments and the wrestling. Because I feel like we need more character development. We need more of that promo or video package or whatever you want to do to help get over the characters. And so what they did on this episode, there was plenty of that. You had the Jon Moxley promo. You had the setup with Moxley and Darby Allin. You had the fantastic segment with Chris Jericho and MJF, which was awesome. Even the alley stuff, if you want to count that. But you get my point. I thought this was a much more balanced show, and I really enjoyed this 2 hours of Dynamite. So that's all I've got for you this time. We'll be back. Hopefully I'll actually do a SmackDown review on Friday. It seems like that's tough for me to do with my schedule, but I will try to do one on Friday. But other than that, we'll definitely have Raw on Monday, back with AEW next week. Be sure to be subscribed to the channel to not miss any of those reviews on the AEW and WWE shows. We're at 65 subscribers now, so we're climbing over. We're trying to get over to 100, and I think once I get there, I'm able to make a custom URL or some shit like that. So help me get a custom URL. Subscribe to the channel, comment, let me know what you guys think. Particularly about the MJF and Wardlow stuff. Do you think MJF is going to join the Inner Circle? Do you think, are you with me that MJF and Wardlow can be their own tandem and don't need the Inner Circle? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.